This week on Supercars Torque, I preview the OTR SuperSprint at the Bend. It's Wildcard week in the Supercars, and not so much for the Bend, but the exciting news that I woke up to this morning. Two of my favourite drivers from across the pond in IndyCar, Hinch and Rossi, that's James Hinchcliffe and Alexander Rossi. They're going to do Bathurst this year, Wildcard with Walkinshaw. Now, I'm not quite sure on the full tie-up of this. Obviously, the Rossi link is quite straightforward. He's an Andretti driver in America, Michael Andretti being a co-owner of Walkinshaw's. But the James Hinchcliffe thing's a bit more long-winded. So I think the tie-up there possibly comes in from Hinch drives for Smith-Peterson over there, who has they've just announced a deal where McLaren is going to be their partner next year. Of course, Zach Brown runs McLaren, and Zach Brown also owns United Autosports, who's the co-owner of Walkinshaw's with Michael Andretti. So that's a three-part. The WAU is Walkinshaw, Andretti and United Autosports. So I think in a roundabout way, Hinch kind of fits in there. And it's a bit interesting as well because apparently with this McLaren kind of takeover of Smith-Peterson, might be seeing Hinchcliffe being kind of pushed out of the way a bit in that team. It's probably more if you follow IndyCars, you probably know what's going on, and if you don't follow IndyCars, you probably don't care about any of this stuff. So why am I so excited about this wild card? Definitely not for results. I mean, these guys are going to be stone motherless last. If James Courtney and Scott Pye can't get that car up the front, well, what hope are these guys? Hinch has driven the supercar once, back in 2012, I think it was, at the Gold Coast. Gary Rodgers, I think he was driving for, and it wasn't that memorable. So, it's not like, say, when a Bourdais or someone came over and did a brilliant job, kind of forgot about Hinch pretty quickly. I'm just excited about their personalities. They do a podcast. If you listen to podcasts and kind of into IndyCars, it's called Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. It's a great listen. They get into the sport a bit, but it's a lot of racing drivers and a bit of banter and things like that. Kind of a bit like the Below the Bonnet one with Dave Reynolds and Michael Caruso. Nearly forgot his name there for a second. Now, while we're on the subject of wildcards for this weekend, we've got the usual Jack Smith one. I imagine that's going to look the same as it has all year. Big news though, Thomas Randall's going to line up in a 5th Tickford Mustang, and my God, does that car look good. It's probably taken a bit of a leaf out of the Monster kind of paint job where we've just got flat black and a bright colour. It just looks great, maybe have a word to the Super Cheap and Bottle-O guys, this is what can be done on a Mustang. So results-wise, I think Randall's in a really good position. This is the old Red 23 car. So at the start of last year, Red 23 bought an old Tickford car to run for Will Davison. Then during the year, I think they got a brand new car, about mid-year, which was then converted to a Mustang. And then this car has become the Tickford Spare. They've been converting it to a Mustang. It's ready to go. I assume it's got all the kind of good bits that the Tickford cars have got. So we could really see, Randall kind of, he's probably not going to be in the top 10, but, he could be, somewhere 15th or so, and I think if he could crack, into those late teens, would be a really good debut for him. So, but we'll see how it goes. And of course, the other big news on the driver front for this weekend is Richie's back. So he had a test in the S5000 car the other day for Gary Rodgers. Apparently all went well, and we're going to see him back on the grid. So we'll see how it goes. Probably the biggest news that's going to affect the racing over the weekend is that Nissan's had an aero update. If you saw my video last week, I had a bit of an explanation. So at the start of the year, they got their front under tray extended a bit, and I think they trimmed a little bit off the gurney flap on the rear boot lid. And it seems that now they've taken off what they added to the front under tray and they've added a bit to the rear gurney flap. I think the under tray is a straight get rid of what they added on. I think the rear gurney flap has been adjusted a little bit. It looks like it kind of goes a bit like that now, whereas I think previously it was one, constant kind of height all the way across. So now there's a bit of design to it. Yeah, they had a test at Winton the other day, the usual kind of garbage like, we're learning, we'll see what happens. So having said, the changes to the Mustang this year, and then the drivers have kind of said, well, we don't know whether it made a difference or not. It's a different track, different day kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Nissan's kind of back on it. They actually had reasonable results at the Bend last year. So it'll be interesting, to see what happens there. So speaking of last year, it was pretty much a Triple Eight whitewash. So Saturday's results don't quite show it. We had Shane Van Gisbergen won, Rick Kelly was second, Michael Caruso third, Whincup was only fourth with Winterbottom fifth. Now, Whincup did have to, there was a safety car, I think it might have been Lee Holdsworth, broke down or something, and there was a safety car and Whincup was second in the queue. He had to double stack. He ended up back somewhere, I don't know, like 15th or something like that, and ended up just kind of, driving through the field for the rest of the race, which then that showed on the Sunday where he won from Shane. And then Dave Reynolds was third, and a bit of a BJR party with Slade and Percat in fourth and fifth. So, results were kind of mixed last year, but going off that, Triple Eight had a good weekend up in Queensland last time out, so, it's hard to not put money on Scott McLaughlin for a win this year, but this is probably one of those tracks where you go, they really, Triple Eight have really got a good shot at it. Maybe a couple others, because DJR, they were just lost last year. They put the wrong gears in one of their cars. I think it might have even been Scott's car for qualifying, that in theory should have given him an advantage. And he qualified. It was something like 18th or something like that. It was just ridiculous how bad a weekend they really had. In the general scheme of things in the championship, wouldn't hurt for Scotty to have a bad weekend and kind of bring him back to everyone a bit. But, I think as long as he kind of finishes in the top 10 somewhere, it's not going to affect the championship too much for him. This weekend we see, the kind of normal layout for the weekend. On Friday we have got the co-drivers practice session, and then practice 1 and practice 2. Saturday then the usual kind of one practice session in the morning, which then it's actually practice 2 from the Friday is the Q0. So then we have the knockout qualifying, that's been explained before. We all know my thoughts on that. This track, who cares, there's heaps of space. Just have a normal qualifying session, but now we have to do this at every super sprint, so yeah, it'll be that way. And then we have race 21, which is a measly 24 laps, but as I said, it is a long track. They'll all be nicely spread out, and yeah, the racing will be a bit... I did try and watch what's that other thing called? I was going to call them Super Tours, but the TCR cars. I did watch them around the Bend, and yeah, that's it. Having said that though, the racing should have been better at Queensland Raceway, and I only got through one race out of 3 so far watching that. Anyway, Sunday we have practice 4, which becomes Q0, which makes more sense to me. What I have the issue with is we have this Q0 kind of on the Friday, and then they go out and have another practice session that kind of in theory doesn't mean anything. Like, to me, you'd have just leave Friday for practice. It's not the idea of this a bit was to have then Friday, people actually going for a lap and stuff, rather than everyone turning around at the end of Friday and going, oh, well, I don't know really where we're at, who ran good tyres and that. The idea was that everyone, kind of at the end of Friday bolts on a good set of tyres and bang, goes for a lap, because it essentially forms part of qualifying. If we have to have this long drawn out system, just have P3 on Saturday morning as part of the qualifying, and then on Sunday has the same layout. That's my rant about that for this week. And race 22 on Sunday is 41 laps, which interestingly, most of the ones this year I think have just been double, where that's a little bit longer. Interesting on that. Maybe my information's wrong. Maybe I looked it up wrong. Anyway, now I know the question on everybody's lips is, what is Nick Percat's paint job for the weekend going to be? Well, it definitely hasn't been released yet because I'm actually filming this early. Sometimes life gets in the way of a Supercars round. I try not to let it happen very often, but sometimes you've got to work around things. And this weekend, which is the weekend before the round, I'm actually getting married. So we're heading off on our honeymoon. That means I'm not actually going to be in Australia for the round. See what our internet connection's like. Might be able to watch it and might be able to do a review straight away. We'll see how we go, but the review might be a little bit late. Please, my 20 viewers or whatever, don't get too sad about it. We'll see how we go. I'm going to try my best, but I can't tell you what Nick Percat's paint job looks like. I assume though it's probably going to be something to do with 7-Eleven or Mobil again like last time, because OTR, the sponsor of this round, is that's the Shahins that own the Bend. They own a lot of these OTR stores, which I think in Adelaide they're like your 7-Eleven or whatever, is with the Mobil fuel stations. I think the OTR are like the little shops or whatever at BP fuel stations. So it was a little bit cheeky last year when the Brad Jones Racing, they had I think it was a Mobil paint job this year, but we have seen them run 7-Eleven liveries this year. So I think there's probably going to be a bit of a tie-up there. But everyone should be looking at the Randall car because that's stunning. And on that note, that's my preview for the OTR SuperSprint at the Bend. I'll see you next time.
Put away your inhibitions, let the beast in you just get loose. We all young, wild, and